Welcome to the Biz Bros podcast. My name is Eli, and I'm joined with my co-host here, Kyle Nelson. And
Good morning.
Bring you an amazing episode today. Beautiful day in Central Oregon, about 48 degrees this morning.
So
clear
nice.
for the first time for a while.
It's like 102 degrees a few days ago.
Yeah, and then drops to 48. So super lucky to have
weird.
that. Aside from that, we are very excited for this podcast. We've got Chico State alumni on the show, which we are also Chico State alumni, and an incredible company called Sendoso.
Entrepreneurs.
Entrepreneurs, co-founders of Sendoso. And we're going to be talking about a topic here today that we talk about a lot. We're also on shows that we are getting interviewed on this question, is the power of a co-founder. The power of two.
It's really exciting because we preach it all the time, but every so often we actually get to talk to other co-founders, especially like these two individuals who've done it in there. They're grinding hard. They've gotten amazing funding with their company. They've done great things, and I'm sure they've got greater futures, but it's really exciting to hopefully learn a little bit about how they co-found together, co-found their company together. Co-founding together and kind of see how we do things. And, we're both in different chapters of our businesses. It should be a really cool conversation.
Absolutely. Without further ado, Braydan and Kris, welcome to the Biz Bros podcast.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for I really like that intro music. I need that before I join phone calls,
Right before a client call, just kind of throw one of these on.
Like, here comes Braydan. Yeah.
Here he comes.
Standing at 6'2". Oh man, this little board here would kind of ruin a lot.
Yeah, that little soundboard's awesome.
Yeah, it's a sweet one. So, well, thanks guys again for joining the show. Super excited to have you guys here. I think to kick it off, let's learn a little bit more about each of you individually, kind of the people that you guys are, maybe dive a little bit into each of you guys' backgrounds, and we'll jump into the topic.
Yeah, go ahead, Kris.
Cool. So I'm Kris Rudeegraap, the CEO and co-founder of Sendoso. I grew up in Northern California, a town called Sebastopol, so not too far from Chico. Yeah, actually, I was born in Santa Rosa, so there we go. Right. And went to college, Chico State University, majored in business marketing, and then shortly after moved to San Francisco, lived in Bay Area now for about 12 years.
Nice,
man.
Right on.
And then I'm Braydan. I'm actually born and raised Chico, so wanted to keep Chico in the names. Did like Chico, elementary, Chico Junior, Chico High, Chico State, and so it was a big deal when I left. Left Chico, moved to San Francisco, was in the city for a good 10 years, and then moved out to Marin, where I am now. I'm only a couple blocks from Kris, so we're buddies in college, and we've stayed buddies throughout San Francisco. Now I just look at this house like on the other hill in Marin.
That's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. So diving into your guys' background, did you guys meet at Chico State?
Or we did.
Meet?
Yep. Yeah. Cool. It's actually a pretty good story. So we met in college. Kris was building a startup at Chico. What's the name of the startup, Kris?
It was called All Student Rentals. Well, it was actually called All Chico Rentals first. And then we wanted to expand to other universities and launched All Student Rentals. And it was a website where you could find housing right next to college campuses, find roommates, and then pay your rent online.
And then I ran like a VC club on campus. So we invested in Kris's company. And so I think it was like a big check of like $25,000, or maybe it was $5,000. It was a pretty small check.
It was 25 grand, which was a lot.
Yeah.
And then we raised another 25 grand from some others, which at the time, 50 grand felt like, 50 million.
Right, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So
we met in college that way, and then we both, I think, stayed buddies from out there. And then he moved to the city before me, and then I came a year after him and slept on his couch for, I think it was a couple of weeks, but Kris thinks it was a couple of months. So I was on his couch for a while. Then I found a job in San Francisco.
Oh, that's awesome. When did you guys go to Chico State? What year did you graduate?
I was 08.
And I was 09.
Cool.
I did a victory lap though. I should have been 08, but I wanted to make sure I wanted to leave.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Right on. Was the CEA there at that point or no?
Yep.
It was there?
Yep.
Yeah.
It was the first year.
Oh, wow. Nice. And you guys were a part of it, and was Peter Strauss there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Wow.
Although I wasn't a part of it as much. I actually started another entrepreneur organization on campus called the Innovation Association. And so that was a fun way to start a club and meet a bunch of people.
Kris was the only member of that one, but it was there too.
No, I wasn't. It was actually the actual story is where I wanted to be networked more with the engineering kind of side of the college because the CEA was a bit more focused on just business majors.
Okay.
And so I started that, met a bunch of engineers and computer scientists through that, and then found my founder through that, who was my co-founder at All Student Rentals. So
did that have anything to do with the innovation lab in town?
It didn't. No, it was more just a group to talk about startups, and ultimately served my purpose of trying to meet other people that were, engineers.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Wow, that's so cool. Yeah, we same thing here. Co-founders met at Chico State. We were a part of a startup called Soul ID. It was a social network for action and adventure sports. One of the other co-founders presented it to Peter Strauss, and he shot it down.
Yeah,
this was the worst idea I've ever heard in my life.
Wasn't making any money, and it really never made any money. So kind of right.
Yeah, from early days on. But I think Chico State. Curious on your guys' thoughts on Chico State, the business program. I know there's some kind of bad rap around Chico, and that was a while ago. But curious to hear your guys' thoughts on Chico State's business program and how you think it helped you guys will come together, but also propel Sendoso where it is today.
Yeah, I mean, I call Chico a social institution because it's one of those things where like everybody you meet there, and you meet a lot of people you see throughout your career, and whenever you come across somebody who went to Chico, you have a bond immediately, which is pretty awesome in like the business world, being able to connect like that fast. The business program was amazing. I think for me, like it taught you real world skills, I think is a good way to put it, where it wasn't like most on like super large case studies, like here's super hypotheticals, but we did like, I was an entrepreneurship major, and we did my senior year, we took like a wine bar in downtown, and we like wrote a business plan for it. And like, it was way too in depth. And when we started Sendoso, we didn't do a massive business plan, but like we did one for this wine bar. And it was kind of cool because we got really in the weeds, like looked at balance sheets, tried to figure out like how things worked. And then probably my other one was like my accounting teacher was like the CFO of Sierra Nevada, and like that was awesome because he used to bring in like actual like case studies that he was going through, so you saw more real world stuff, which I think was important when you kind of really get into the mix of things.
Yeah, I loved some of the teachers like Tim Hines, David Ron. Some of those teachers were really inspirational. But I would say the other thing is I think they've got like a good sales certificate program. They've really embraced the fact that a lot of great salespeople come out of Chico and invested in a good sales program too, which I think is a good strategy.
Absolutely.
So true.
Yeah, I think Chico, one of the great things about it is they kind of they don't like force feed you stuff. They really help you figure things out on your own. Is what I do, especially with the entrepreneurship program, because that's what I did too. And obviously Peter Strauss, he kind of said the hell with any kind of agenda and just kind of started talking about whatever he needed to. And at the end of the class, you had a business plan, which he either ripped apart or loved it. So
exactly. Strauss is great. Yeah, I had him too. Yeah.
Yeah. We're actually going to get to see him this weekend.
Yeah, we're going to a wedding and he's going to be there. So we're pretty stoked to have a drink.
Yeah. Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Where was your guys' spot in Chico? What was like the go-to spot? Curious.
I was a Riley's person. I lived a block away, so I mean like going there and like that was where you would usually go. I know the good answer is the Bear because it's right there, but like I went to Riley's.
I think I was more the Bear.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Or like I remember there's like LaSalle's was pretty fun, but I don't think that exists anymore.
No, it's like a high-end restaurant now.
It's completely changed. A
really
whole new place. Yeah, it is really good. But yeah, there was a lot of like stabbings I think that happened there. So I think they shut it down.
The sketch part of it.
Come back
Chico.
and yeah.
80s night was a lot of fun though.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, cool. So tell us about Sendoso. I know people are eager to hear about that.
What was the problem?
Yeah.
How'd you guys find the problem? And then you're like, oh,
exactly.
Boom, solution. How did that happen?
Yeah, I could chime in there. So really, we were both in sales. So after Chico, I can kind of give you a little bit more of the story. Yeah. My company sold to a company in San Francisco that moved me into the city. Braydan moved into the city, and we both went into sales roles thereafter. So there was probably about 8 years of being account executives at various software companies. And so, we were really in the weeds, being sales reps, prospecting, full cycle sales. And really what we saw is that email automation was, really taking over. It was easy to send a million gazillion emails out. And so we wanted to do something a bit more creative and crafty to break through that noise. And one of those tactics that got started with was sending out Starbucks gift cards. as a way of like, hey, let's chat, I'll buy coffee on me. Or, hey, like looking forward to our meeting later, here's coffee. And so really started with the idea of just sending out some coffee cards. And that, while we were brainstorming over some beers, said, hey, what if there's an easier way to do that? And we came up with the concept of coffeesender.com. And so that was something that we could put our minds around. It was a concept that we could, in theory, build a Salesforce app. We ended up finding an engineer through Upwork that was about $5,000 and built our first version of the company.
Very cool.
And so it all started with coffee. And that was the first problem. We realized that it wasn't going to be a huge business though.
Yeah, we did. I think the cool thing about coffee too is like as we were building that, I think a fun story is we were sending out Starbucks gift cards, and we quickly learned that we didn't have an agreement with Starbucks with Starbucks at all. So like they called us, they're like, "Why are you guys spending like $60,000 a month on buying these gift cards from our site?" Like, no, like here's a cease and desist letter. Like, get out of here. And so I think this is probably a good skill from Chico you learned is we're like, well, we're going to pitch them on why they need to work with us. So we sat down one night and emailed everybody at Starbucks, like, this is why you want to work with Coffee Center. They got back to us. We flew up there and we pitched them on this meeting. And this is my favorite story. We had like this 5-hour long meeting. It was Kris and I and like 10, like in my head, I want to say it was like 100 Starbucks executives. And so like we're in this meeting and we're pitching them on the concept. And at Starbucks, they told us that what you're supposed to do is like every 15 minutes, they bring like, they would bring you like another coffee to taste. They'd be like, hey, like here's like another roast to try in the middle of your meeting. But no one would drink it. Kris and I would of course drink it if like we had to. So 5-hour long meeting, we must have had like 10 or 12 cups of coffee and we were wired. And we made it through, and they were like, I think it was like some weird Starbucks gauntlet thing that like we somehow got through. But they were like, cool, you guys can go work on it. And so to this day, the reason we're able to like use that brand like on our site is because of that meeting we had where they basically punished us for 5 hours. But anyways, getting back to the story, as Kris was saying, Coffee Center was kind of taken off pretty fast. Like we had like all of our sales buddies were using it. CX was using it, but we needed to figure out ways to send other things than just coffee, which is sort of like the aha moment for us.
Yeah. So while we were working on Coffee Center too, we had full-time sales jobs in the beginning. So this was a nights and weekends project, but it was taking off so much, hundreds of thousands in revenue that Braydan was able to quit his job to jump in full-time. And then a couple of months later, I quit my job to jump in full-time.
It was quit the job because we were making more on Coffee Center than we did like with the other company at the time. It was time to jump in and do this full time. I called Kris. I was like, hey, this thing we've been going around on, like meeting at 4 a.m. I was like, well, it's like we're doing it, man. Like it's like we're gonna see where we can take it.
That's cool.
Yeah, we used to meet at like 5 a.m. to work for a couple hours before our real job, and then we'd work at 10 p.m. for a couple hours after the real job.
Love it.
It was good hustle, but it felt so nice when we quit and we could just go full time. And that's really when Sendoso was born, and it really was born out of the learnings from Coffee Center and having the confidence that was going strong, but we needed to send more stuff. Learnings from being in sales and seeing that, sending out corporate gifts and swag and handwritten notes was also something that was working well, but it was super manual. And so it was kind of that second aha moment where it's like, well, it's so easy to click a button and send a Starbucks card, but I'm writing notes and like sending boxes of stuff. Like, wouldn't it be awesome to just click a button and send that stuff? And that's where we decided, hey, let's build Sendoso. And then we kind of then took 9 months to ultimately build out warehousing infrastructure and a new software platform, and launched our first warehouse in 2017. And have since scaled up from there.
So why don't you
I think Brayden's got his own going on in the background.
Brayden was at like an airport or something. So
there's like someone drilling on my wall. Of course, why not?
What was I saying? So tell us exactly, like the listeners, what is Sendoso? Like, what's the elevator pitch?
Yes. So we're a sending platform that makes it easy for other companies to send out corporate gifts, direct mail, company swag, all integrated in through, Salesforce, HubSpot, SalesLoft Outreach. So you can click a button or set up an automation. We have warehouses around the world where we're packing boxes, writing handwritten notes, sending things out. So really makes it easy to, you can send t-shirts, you can send wine, you can send chocolates, you name it, we can send it.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about the infrastructure. Why so many warehouses? So I'm guessing they're like regional, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we've got a huge warehouse in Phoenix, Arizona. It's our largest domestic one. We've got in California, Canada, Europe, and Asia. So it's part of the strategy just for localizing and shipping in those regions too.
Yeah, cool. Makes sense. That is really cool. That's phenomenal. We have been talking, that's really been wrapped around our minds. And I know I shared this with Braydan on our kind of pre-chat, but thinking about retention, client retention, and how to keep that bucket full and keep that bucket churning versus it kind of leaking out with clients. And really started to think about like thank you cards and different things that can just latch clients in. We get a lot of gifts, like during the holidays, we get shipped boxes of wine, boxes of chocolates and stuff. So we're kind of flipping the table. And what you guys do fits exactly what we were looking for from a retention standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's all about building the relationship, right? And like if you can't see each other face to face, from the beauty of working from home, hence the drilling on my wall 2 seconds ago. Like you can't see people face to face, and being able to send something, being able to use the power of reciprocity, being able to actually build a relationship is a huge deal. And we do a lot of that across B2B orgs. We do a lot of that around like your employees. You can send stuff to as well. So that's been kind of cool to see that grow out.
You guys have some like stats behind retention on that, like how it, or like good case studies that companies came back and said like
we do. Yeah. I think on our website, we probably have 50 or more case studies on exactly what was sent, what was the mechanism of how they sent it. So it was the integration, who they were sending to, and what were the results. So we love to tout examples specifically and share those so that people can get real world examples of things that work well.
Yeah, I think there's use cases, right? Like if you're using it top of funnel for sales, like trying to get meetings, like there's like things you're just like eGifts you're sending or boxes you're sending. If you're a customer already and like someone has a kid or they like something exciting happens, like they buy a house, like the bottles of champagne that you can send, or like there's life, like every time you interact with a customer you might have, there's always a good reason you might want to send something after that call or before that call. And that just puts the relationship on a whole nother level.
Phenomenal. That's very cool. Absolutely love it. So you guys are in the journey. You've got a working model. You see it start to work. Tell us about the fundraising and that you guys went through in terms of raising your like investment.
The growth with employees and all that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, so Kris was building Sendoso. I was still selling Copy Center, trying to get revenue to actually use that to pay our engineers we had. And from there, we were like, let's just build like a lifestyle business, one that we can always just, work from anywhere. Quickly, we're like, we'll raise a little money to see how to use that money to kind of scale. And we started talking to different VC houses around like, hey, like how can we raise a little bit of cash, like a seed round. Kris and I both being sales folks, they're interesting meetings because we go there, be like, hey, like, they'd be like, who's your engineer? Like, who's your product person? We're like, well, Kris does a good job there, but a lot of that's in Lahore, Pakistan. They're like, oh, well, that's not for us then. But we were able to point to, we have a lot of revenue and we're growing really fast and we have like product market fit immediately. And so that really helped out early conversations for folks to be like, all right, like this is something I'm very interested in investing in. The first meeting I want to say we had was it Storm, Kris?
Yeah, I mean, we really got introduced to one of our first investors, and that was the first one we went with. I think part of that, when Braydan touted that, is we did focus more on building traction and kind of bootstrapping to as much as we could, so that we had that traction, so that we could go to VCs and say, hey, we have customers. So when we went and raised our seed round of $2 million, we already had about 600,000 in SaaS ARR. And so that was, we weren't just, saying, hey, this is an idea. We think we can do this. We're like, hey, we already built this. We've already got a ton of customers. This is working. And then when we, a year after that, we had around 5 million in SaaS ARR and our Series A came in at about 14 million. And so that was a little bit easier too. So, and then a year after that, another 40 million. So long story short, I think in the early days, instead of going straight to VCs, we said, hey, let's hustle as hard as we can and get as close to, bootstrapped as possible. And that paid off because our traction story was, you couldn't stop.
We were also in a position like the first probably 5 or 6 months, like Kris and I didn't take any money from the company. It was, we paid each other in Starbucks gift cards. It was, hey, like, let's make this thing work first. And I think we both talked a lot about like what the end date was. Like what was like the, hey, like if we get to this date and like we're not able to make salary from the company, that like we should go get jobs, man, because this is actually going to work. And so like we had a lot of those early conversations as co-founders on like, how are you doing? Like when, like financially, is that okay? I think those are, being transparent at the start really helped as well, because I think we both kind of knew where the other person was when it comes to that. And doing well in sales before at other startups kind of helped us have a window of making this thing work.
I think there's about a year probably of bootstrapping before we ended up going and raising VC money. Once we had VC money, it was a different story because we could then, we had a path to more revenue, and then it just kind of snowballed. But that first kind of year and a half was more challenging.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we could jump into the whole co-founding thing. I think transparency is 100% the number one thing, and it sounds exactly like what we did. We just bootstrapped for like a year, didn't pay ourselves anything. I was picking him up from work, and he was like on a phone call, and he would come and do a shoot with me real quick, and then I'd drop him back off. And like, it was just like pure, just the hustle of, okay, like how can we sneak in a shoot real quick? Mornings, nights. And then finally I jumped on full time for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months until he was wrapping stuff up. And then they could come on. We could just barely get by, just enough on both of our salaries to be like, okay, we can kind of pay our bills. We're going to do some side stuff to kind of figure it out. But we knew we're like, we have to go full time. Otherwise it's just not going to work.
Exactly. Got to commit, and you got to like really, really trust the idea and know that there is some traction, but if you take more, if you have more time, that traction will turn into, hopefully success.
I think like it's important. Like, I mean, I feel like that's all Kris and I talked about. And it's always really talk about like when you're constantly pitching it to buddies, to friends, to whoever, like at bars, like in Ubers. And like, that was one of those things where it starts to, it just becomes, it's blended into your life. And it's important to get to that point because you believe in the concept.
I'd say another thing we did too in the early days was we did give ourselves a good work-life balance. And that was something that Braydan and I both decided on early too, is that, hey, we're still going to take vacations. We liked traveling, which I think in some early days, you just work 20-hour days and you're like, that's the only thing I can do. But Braydan and I would like take turns, go on trips. And that was something that we knew this was not a sprint. This was going to be could be a 10-year marathon. Right. And so let's make sure our wives are, happy. Our families are happy. We're personally, still getting out there. And so that was something that we actually instill in our current company culture. Now we have, 450 people or so, where we still say, get out, go on vacation, have fun. And so that was something that came from the very early days.
Yeah, I mean, we were very frugal when it came to the happy hours Kris and I would have when it was just him and I would be at Chipotle. You'd go there, get beers for $4, chips and salsa for $4.
So on point. Oh, man. We were like trading work with breweries and bars. So we would like work with them so we could get free beer. Like do whatever we could to like penny pinch and save $1. Yeah. And luckily we're service based, so it's easy just to trade, Hey, we'll do a photo shoot for you, give us free beer for the next few months or something. So very Chico-esque,
such a Chico move. Yeah.
We used to share a desk probably for the first 6 months. We had one desk between the two of us, and we would just sit on either side of it. And then we ended up also one of Braydan's friends who had another company. We just squatted in their office for a long time, actually. Even when we had about
probably 50, too long.
Yeah, probably about 20 employees. We were still in there without paying rent.
Yeah, we were like triple their size, and they were like, "It's time, you guys."
Yeah,
we're like, but you invested.
Our lot's full. Yeah. All your guys' people.
Yeah, eating all our food. So is everybody? I mean, besides the warehouse workers, is it a remote based company, or did you guys just recently go remote? How did that work?
No, we've got headquarters around the world. We've got San Francisco, Scottsdale, Arizona, office in Lahore, Pakistan. We just opened up Dublin, Ireland. And then we do have people remote across the US. Obviously, during COVID, everyone went remote. And then we'll probably go back to more of a hybrid kind of schedule where people can come back into the office if they want for some of the week.
Yeah, our goal is to, I think like with sales, with CX, this makes sense to have a couple of days in person, I think is what we're going to go back to. I think the people that have moved away and all that sort of jazz, I think that they are probably going to stay put, but I think it's important to at least see face-to-face a couple times a year, at least.
Totally agree. So what do you guys think from kind of winding back to the topic, which is kind of the power of a co-founder? What would you guys each individually answer this? What would you think is the most important part of having a co-founder, and why did you select having a co-founder versus kind of doing your own thing?
For me, it was definitely pushing each other into doing this. I think like there was a lot of concepts I would say that I came across as, graduating with a business degree, and Kris and I have same buddies. We always would have beers and talk about things that were cool and creative. But for me, it was like when I made the jump, like, hey, we're doing this full time, and Kris had the idea of Coffee Sender. Like, I was like, this is amazing. Like, you've already built it. Like, I can sell this. To, hey, we're doing Sendoso now. To, hey, like, we're going to raise some money now. To, hey, like, I think that we got to go this different direction. So for me, it's kind of the bouncing off of pushing one another into things where even when you feel uncomfortable, you're like, oh, like, crap. Like, I'm not going to make any more salary anymore. Like, I'm going to go do this. Like, Braydan jumped, and like, I got to figure this out and figure out like how I'm going to jump. Or, hey, Kris has this really cool concept, and like, he's been working on it all weekend. Like, what can I add to it that's going to also like contribute as well? So I would say like holding each other accountable kind of came naturally to Kris and I, where it was one of those things where I trusted him because I knew him for a long time. And even when I knew that Kris wouldn't take 4 days off a week and then, go travel and not come back. So I think like the one, pushing each other, 2, accountability, and 3, kind of having trust, I think were important for me. And that's kind of why I chose to have a co-founder.
Yeah, I'd say for me, 1 is the sounding board. I think there's a million ideas that go through your head in the early days. Do you do this? Do you do that? You have so limited time with one person or a couple people that, you have to really make the right decisions. And, sometimes you can have decision paralysis. I think if you're a solo founder where you're like, okay, what do I do here? Who do I talk to? I'm so far in this rabbit hole as a founder. Like know it. So I think with Braydan, we were both in that rabbit hole. And so we were able to kind of, be a sounding board, and it was easier to make decisions. So I think that was important. And then I think the other one is just kind of motivation. We both, there's highs and lows and roller coaster rides, and so if you're on it by yourself, I think there's scenarios where you might just want to jump off the roller coaster and quit. But, with Braydan, it was really like, okay, let's keep going. Let's do this. Like, let's celebrate the small wins. Let's build momentum. And so I think the motivation also really helped.
Yeah. I mean, there's been many times where I've had beers with Kris over like a bad day, and you're just like, that sucked. And like being able to like relate with somebody, I think and if you're solo, it'd be a very different experience.
Totally.
Yeah. No one wants to do the journey alone. I think it's all about checks and balances too, making sure everybody's in the right level area.
You're kind of working for free in the early days too, at least if you're kind of maybe a first-time founders too that don't have a major track record that could just get a gazillion VC dollars day zero.
Yeah.
So it also helped that we could divide and conquer. We basically had 2 people that could work for free and divide up the duties. And so that was also super helpful because in essence, we could do twice as much than just a single co-founder or a single founder.
And I think it's important. I mean, like for your listeners, I mean, it is a relationship. Like there's like the people I call the most on my phone, like it's my wife, then my mom, and then Kris. And like there's like the 3 people that I talk to most often. Yeah. And I think that like that's in the early days, it was even more. I mean, and then your families become friends with like their families. And so like so I think it's really important to keep in mind that you need to like the person, I guess, to go to think about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
I still don't like Kris, but I'm working on it.
Yeah. I don't know about you.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the same boat. We're lucky enough to have, if you have a co-founder, you need to be able to have the respect for them too as an individual, and we're lucky enough to be best friends as well. I think that can be a very sticky situation with a lot of different co-founders, but I think if you have that level-headed respect and like debate and not argue, I think is like huge. And I think that's where a lot of problems happen with co-founders is they just don't have the respect. They're power heads and they think, my way or the highway. And I think when you already have the relationship with somebody and then you move into a business world with them, it's a lot different than, hey, we're both business people. Let's grab some coffee and see if this business will work out between the both of us. Because you don't know who they are, it's like a marriage. You don't know how it's going to be when you move in with the individual unless you've kind of already built the relationship with them over time.
Yeah.
I'd say one other interesting dynamic. So Braydan and I both had sales backgrounds. We were both, we have a very similar personality too, and similar, path to where we got. So one of the things that I think we got lucky on was just we didn't have as much complementary skill sets per se. It's like I wasn't like an engineering major and he was a business major, and we just were able to divide and conquer. We also very much agreed on a lot of the same things. And so we realized that actually early on that we were both had similar skill sets. We both had, similar personalities. And so, within our very early days, we ended up hiring a COO who was kind of our third co-founder almost, I would say.
Absolutely.
And she joined, at the time we paid her like 4 times as much as us because she was, legit and had a great background, great experience. But we needed her dynamic to come in with, she had a finance background, a big company background, and, just a different perspective, a different set of skills. And that ended up being one of the best decisions we ever made because it really allowed for us to, again, divide and conquer more, but also have different perspectives as we occasionally would have the same exact perspective. And then, we wouldn't have as much, differencing of opinions. So,
yeah. That was really important for us to get her. Like that was huge because like Kris and I were both. Someone tried to sell us software. We're like, yeah, that's cool. And she was like, you don't have budget for it. We're like, okay. So like it was. I mean, she's definitely a third co-founder.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, recently we've I think we've known it, but we've seen the data to prove it. But we've done a lot of like deep personality tests along with us and our other business partners. But our advisor in Austin put us through this really deep. I mean, two-day. Deep dive boot camp into personalities on who we are, what are like the stressors, what are the motivators behind us, how do we act, and that has helped I think a lot in terms of the direction. And okay, this is kind of like we're going to play Kyle in this role, one because maybe his personality relates a little bit more to that individual or the prospect we're trying to get, or maybe it's this is more of like a visionary like type of move that is kind of more Kyle's realm. So we've been able to divide tasks a little bit like that. And I think going backwards or for listeners too that are looking to seek out a co-founder, I think doing these tests, almost like interviewing that person would be something to go back and do. Not saying we did it wrong because we were lucky and we got it right. But I think a lot of people could take that information and almost interview that person based on personality to see those complementary skills.
Behavioral assessments. Do you have Trimetrics?
I haven't heard of that.
No.
It's like a $2,500 test. Our advisor luckily is one of the proctors, and so he was able to get us in there to do it. But it's a really intense. Pops out like 70 pages worth of reports on who that individual is, and then it breaks up who you are at work and who you are at home, and how your behaviors change when you go into the office because you have others you can rely on to pick up. And it's really cool. Trimetric EQ, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
This might be a Chico thing, but I think that like going out and spending a couple hours in the bar with somebody and seeing what they're like after 6 drinks is like probably one of the best tests of all time. Because if I don't like you after 6 drinks, then like it's not going to work out. Like when we're arguing over some sort of concept in business, right? I think like
absolutely
like that was a huge one I think for me.
Totally. I think that comes back to the benefit of Chico. I think it's real world experience and you actually socialize and you learn how to interact. Yeah. I think is like one of the most important skills that a lot of schools don't preach in the business programs. So
yeah, I also say it built a lot of social confidence too.
Yes.
And I think that confidence is something that was key for us too. I mean, we went into sales and that just even more boosted our ego and confidence. But then becoming founders, it was like nothing could stop us. We can sell this to anybody, and we just that gave us a head start over maybe someone that's a little bit more introvert and timid and it's like build something cool but like can't tell the world about it.
That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, we'd like to ask our guests each individually for both you guys, what is one thing that you'd like to leave, like a legacy you'd like to leave, or one thing you'd like to leave for the listeners?
I think one thing for the listeners I'd leave is like, I love networking with people. I love talking with people. So like my email is Kris, K-R-I-S @sendoso.com, or find me on LinkedIn. And I'm happy to, chat. If you got a startup and you got some questions, this and that, I'm happy to share my journey from, 0 to almost 500 employees and along the way. And so I'll leave that as a listener takeaway.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think to add to that, also hello at Sendoso goes just to Kris and I as well. So just like we're not sure why, but it still does and internally. So like always feel free to email us. I think mine is if you have a concept or an idea or something that you want to chase, like to go for it. You don't need to jump in full time right away. Like you start testing it out, build sort of hey, like this is sort of working, and like work on it at nights, work on it in the mornings. And once it starts to grow, then go full time, and then like kind of chase it. I would say I meet so many people that are like, oh yeah, I had a concept or an idea that like I wanted to do, but I didn't actually do it. So I would say to go for it. Like there's so many resources out there that you can use. Like early on, Kris and I would need help on something, and we'd just go to LinkedIn, find somebody who'd done it before, reach out and say, hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm trying to accomplish. Like, can I get 15 minutes of your time to like ask you questions? And 9 times out of 10, they'd get back and be like, absolutely. So like whatever you're trying to do, whatever your concept is, if you're looking for guidance, help, like most folks on LinkedIn, if you reach out the right way, would be willing to give you 15 minutes to point you in the right direction.
Absolutely.
It's a very good tip.
It is a very good tip.
I mean, it's true. Anytime, like you guys just gave out, hey, hit me up. I think most people would be like 100%. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's really cool.
Buy them a cup of coffee, get 15 minutes worth of their time. Right
exactly.
there.
Absolutely.
Oh man. Well, what a great show.
Yeah.
That was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for being a part of the BizBros podcast. Excited to share this with the audience.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
If they want to find more about Sendoso, is it just go to sendoso.com?
Yep, exactly.
Perfect. Or email us too, and we can point in the right direction.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Kris and Braydan. We appreciate you guys' time. We're going to close this out, but we really look forward to hopefully having another conversation soon, man. There it is.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Biz Bros podcast. Once again, just Google Biz Bros. We'll pop up. Go ahead and subscribe. Follow us on all the different social platforms, and we look forward to having another episode, chatting and listening and talking to you guys real soon.
See you guys.